car market in Mogadishu.
NATO's military success against
many Western nations.
This is On Assignment.
Welcome to the show, everybody. In this episode, we bring you the inside stories from around the world and even out of this world. I'm Alex Villarreal.
And I'm Imran Siddiqui. First up, the VOA reporter who scored an interview with Zimbabwe's controversial President Robert Mugabe.
Then it's off to Hawaii, where lava on the Big Island is making life a little too toasty for some residents.
Watching the Earth's climate, but from outer space.
And a peek inside VOA's weekly news roundtable.
Coming to you from VOA headquarters in Washington, D.C., On Assignment starts right now. Zimbabwe's President Robert Mugabe is the new chairman of the African Union. He was elected in January at the AU's 2015 summit, but his selection was not without controversy. In power nearly 3 decades, the 90-year-old has a reputation for ruling with an iron fist.
And that record has earned him sanctions from both the U.S. and EU, but Mr. Mugabe says he's unconcerned about how the West views his chairmanship. VOA Zimbabwe service reporter Sandra Naira was at the summit in Ethiopia, and she managed to get Mr. Mugabe talking and stirring even more controversy, this time about equality between women and men. Take a look.
Equal work for equal wages, but total parity because we are different biologically.
President Mugabe was elected chairman of the AU at this summit you attended, and you had the rare chance to interview him. What was that like?
It was quite a rare chance, as you said, a beautiful moment for me as a journalist. Every journalist would have wanted an opportunity to speak with him, to ask him a number of questions. And there I was, I caught up with him before he left, his chair. And then I just started talking to him. I said, Your Excellency, how are you? He said, oh, I'm fine. I said, welcome to the summit, and you are discussing, the theme of the summit is women.
What are you expecting to do when you become the chairperson of in terms of pushing this agenda for women?
I'll ask you what you want me to do.
What I would want you to do as a woman is make sure that we have as many women as possible from grassroots level, at all levels.
Do you see the problem that the women have?
Then he went on, and his people wanted to stop him. Obviously, he was saying something that is deep within his heart, but something that is not politically correct in terms of what the African Union was saying in its own theme, where he was taking over as chairman and his own personal views.
It's not easy for them. They get married now. They must have babies. That's the problem.
So such a unique moment for you too, being from Zimbabwe yourself. Talk to us about, you're there as a journalist, but you also have a stake in what this president says.
That's very true. Coming from Zimbabwe, as a Zimbabwean journalist and a Zimbabwe national, it was a special moment that, I managed to reach out to him, and that he didn't rebuff me, and his team members knew who I was and they allowed him to talk. But as a person who also is looking at Zimbabwe from a distance, living and working in the US, you want things to move in your country, and you see things not moving probably in the right direction, or you have your own views. And so it was good to get close to him as a president.
Now let's talk about your coverage of the summit. What was it like for you? What kinds of things are going on behind the scenes that we as viewers and readers who see what the media reports about an event like this don't get to see?
Oh my God, it was massive. A lot of meetings happening at the same time as the official summit itself, a lot of side meetings. In particular, this time, the theme was on women empowerment and development in Africa. So there are a lot of meetings looking at women in Africa and involving women and the youth and young girls coming together to speak about what they really want African leaders to do for them. And then the number one issue that I think dominated the summit was the terrorism in Nigeria, the Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab. Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General, was there.
There should be a very careful analysis of the root causes why this kind of terrorist and extremism, violent extremism, are spreading.
There were many meetings going on, private meetings behind the scenes, negotiations about the number of troops that are needed to form an intercontinental rapid response team to deal with these issues, how much money would be required, and the funding of the African Union itself. And also the issue of South Sudan and the peace process, which is not moving at all, which keeps on going, back and forth. Too many things happening at the same time, but it's it's amazing, it's interesting, it's exciting to be there on, right there where things are happening, where you are just running the whole day 24/7, no time to rest. You can imagine 54 African leaders. I saw a lot of progress from the previous summits that I've covered, and I would want to say, I think they are moving forward, and people are waiting to see whether they're going to implement everything that they agreed on, in particular how to deal and decimate Boko Haram, a threat that is growing within West Africa, that it doesn't go to other regions on the continent.
All right, moving right along into our next story, which comes to us from the Big Island of Hawaii, where the residents of a small town are facing an advancing threat from the Kilauea volcano.
And Kilauea has been erupting for decades, but people in the town of Paoa are keeping a more watchful eye on the lava that is creeping towards them. VOA's Michael Sullivan was there and spoke to me about it, and he got some amazing video too.
Yes,
Let's check it out.
We're looking at the Kilauea caldera, which is at the summit of Kilauea volcano. Within the caldera, there's a pit crater called Halemo'omou, and within that, there's a smaller crater. It's about 160 meters in diameter, and from that, this volcanic gas is being emitted behind us, mostly water, sulfur dioxide, and carbon dioxide. Down about 45 meters within that smaller crater is a circulating lava lake. And it's from the lava lake that the gases are being emitted.
Initially in 1983, when the latest eruption or series of eruptions started, it was at the summit, and there was a small explosive event there. Nobody was hurt. Most recently, on what they call the Eastern Rift Zone, the lava has started bubbling up near populated areas, and it's a slow process. The lava, when it comes out, it can move maybe just meters a day. Some days it doesn't move at all, and it's a little unpredictable. If it's on a slope, they can assume it's going to run downhill, like syrup bubbling up and rolling down the table. But if if it encounters an obstacle, it could go in one direction or the other. And what's happened is it's come within a few hundred meters of a populated area, and in fact has destroyed one home. So that's when it really starts getting people's attention.
Is there any possibility to predict the direction of this volcano?
Well, they can, as I say, if it's coming out on a slope, they pretty much know it's going to go downhill. But they can't do any real predictions. And as one scientist told me, they were basically being pressured into making predictions early in this process.
When all's said and done, it doesn't matter how well we predict the behavior of the volcano. If the behavior of the community is inappropriate for what's happening, then you still get a disaster.
And they say they know a lot more today than they did 10 or even 5 years ago, but there's still a lot they don't know, and they really just have to monitor what's happening day to day.
Okay. You also spoke to the Hawaii County Fire Chief, Darren Rosario, and he said that the lava is bringing long-lasting changes. What did he mean by that?
Well, the Hawaiian Islands were created by volcanoes, and it's just an ongoing process.
When a lava flow comes through, its effects remains for hundreds of years. The hardened lava rock remains there for a very long time. But that's how the islands were built. That's how we grow as a state.
And you go out to beaches. There are some beautiful white sand beaches there, but there are also some lava rock beaches, very rugged looking places. Or you go up high on Mauna Loa, which is another volcano, which is in theory still active. And you see a lot of vegetation, and it's growing out of this black lava rock. So it's an ongoing process. The islands would not be there without volcanoes, and it's just something that the people of Hawaii have to live with.
And in closing, Mike, was this one of the main reasons what attracted you towards this story?
I think it is. I mean, Hawaii is a place of such tremendous natural beauty, but it's also a place where the forces of nature are just a part of life. You've got volcanoes, you've got the threat of tsunamis, you have hurricanes, you've got earthquakes, and but you've got such rugged beauty, and it's all because it's in an active seismic zone, what they call the Pacific Ring of Fire. And the fact is, if it weren't in this location, it wouldn't be as beautiful as it is.
Fantastic story. VOA's Michael Sullivan is the bureau chief in Los Angeles.
Now, we are taking a break now. When we return, NASA and climate change. You're watching On Assignment.
The U.S. Space Agency, NASA, had a busy 2014, launching 3 missions last year, and 2 more already this year. The latest NASA probes are focused on observing Earth's vital life support systems to provide data that could help scientists to better understand the factors behind Earth's warming climate. And joining me right now is VOA Environment Correspondent. This is Roseanne Skirble. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Let's talk about this satellite called GPM. What is it and what does it do?
GPM is monitoring rainfall and snow, water in the air, water in the atmosphere. It follows on something called the Tropical Rainfall Measuring Instrument, or TRIM, basically looking at rainfall, heavy rainfall, moderate rainfall in the tropics. This extends it globally. So we'll go from the Antarctic to the Arctic, and we'll see more of a global picture. Why is this important? It's important because water is fundamental to life on Earth. We need to know more about it. We need to know more about the system. It also will help improve the forecasting, especially of extreme events. Monitors hurricanes and the like, and we want to know more. We want to know more about that, because under a global climate change, what we're expecting is more severe and more intense weather events, and this will help understand that better. But also, it will help in monitoring fresh water. As we have more droughts, we need to know where the water is, so that, especially for agriculture.
But NASA sends out these kind of satellites more often. Why is this one particularly important? Is this the first time that we'll get a global picture of what's going on in terms of securing water?
I think that it enlarges that picture. Yes, it makes it more. It makes it global. It extends the picture. That's why it's important. As I said before, it's fundamental to Earth.
And then there's another satellite called the OCO2. Tell us a little bit about that.
OCO2 is the first spacecraft that NASA is sending to look at the atmospheric carbon dioxide. And that's important because it's a chief greenhouse gas that causes global warming. And the human impacts, what's happening now is that the elevated CO2 is because of human impacts. And that's the cars we drive, the buildings we heat and cool, and also the power plants that we use, which is increasing the levels of CO2 in the atmosphere. We want to be able to see it, to chart it, to map it. And that's exactly what NASA's doing. It's giving us a picture, and this is global, a global picture of where the carbon is being emitted, where we can see it in the atmosphere, as well as to where it's being stored. So we can balance those two. So a little bit of good news out of this already, that since it's been launched, is that we're seeing that in the tropical forests, that they're taking up more carbon dioxide than they had previously thought. So this is really an opportunity.
So it's like these satellites will provide a more accurate global picture of the global climate.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. They provide this picture, and so knowing about the rainfall, knowing about how the wind is, knowing about how the ocean waves, all these things that contribute to climate, understanding that will give us not only a better picture, but it'll be able to take the next step. Well, if we continue to put carbon emissions into the atmosphere, we have to adapt to the change that's coming to us. So this will help decision makers, this will help managers, this will help adapt to the changes in our future.
Will it help meteorologists predict weather?
Well, no. Basically, if you're asking the question, are these connected to climate change? Are these more severe and intense events? No, scientists are not ready to say that. They're just ready to say that they're more intense. But it will give us more information that in turn will be able to predict the weather.
Thank you so much for joining us, VOA Environment reporter Roseanne Skirble.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're taking a break now. On the other side, behind the scenes of another VOA TV show, the weekly news show called The Correspondence. You're watching on assignment.
Last year, VOA English launched a brand new TV program called The Correspondence. Now, this is a half-hour show that provides our worldwide audience with an in-depth look at the week's top news stories.
The Correspondence is a roundtable discussion featuring VOA reporters both in studio and around the world. The host of the show is a VOA reporter himself, Mil Arcega.
And I had the chance to chat with Mil about all the gritty behind-the-scenes details of anchoring a live news show. Take a look.
My biggest mission statement really is to make sure that at the end of the day, our viewers, those people who actually tuned in and watched all three segments, come away with a better understanding of some of these issues. And some of them are very hard, very tough kinds of stories that are happening all over the world. And what I'm hoping is that they at least walk away and say, oh, I think I know that story a little bit better. And this is The Correspondence on Voice of America. The Jordanian government executed 2 militants this week.
What are some of the topics you're covering?
We're talking about ISIL. Did ISIL go too far?
This one really seemed to shock to a different level.
You know, after the brutal execution of this Jordanian pilot, did they actually run out of luck at this point? Because Jordan and thousands, tens of thousands of Muslims are now saying, you can't do this to your fellow Muslims. So did they go too far? That's one of the issues we're talking about. And the other issue, of course, is Ukraine, which has not been in the news, you know, a lot, but we're seeing the fighting intensify there, and we're seeing diplomatic efforts actually reaching some kind of a fulcrum here. Something has to give, right?
Ukrainian troops keep a careful watch on who goes in, while families squeeze into cars to leave.
And the other segment, of course, is Ebola. I mean, for months we were, you know, Ebola was in the headlines, and all of a sudden it just sort of disappeared. So we wanted to provide people with a progress report now that measles is sort of overtaking it as the disease du jour. Right. So we are talking about those issues. Those issues affect some parts of the world more than others. It can be a tough balancing act, you know, because you're trying to make sure if you have 3 guests, that each of those people, they have a story, they have something to say. Al Pessin, I guess I want to start with you. You have to make sure that they actually, their voices are heard, because they may provide you with insight that you did not know before. That's what I like about the show.
Right, and every week when you go and you sit down with your team and you talk about what topics you're going to feature, how do you determine what gets the top spot for that week?
A lot of it is dependent really on what stories we are actually actively covering.
Yeah, I've already switched it.
Because Ebola has declined so much.
That awards that Ann look. We broadcast in 44 different languages, so you have to sort of balance that out again. Are we serving our African viewers well by talking about this story? Are we serving our European viewers well? What about our Asian audience? So that ends up being some of the editorial decisions that you have to make. You know, so you're trying to balance that out. But again, the headlines will always determine what is going to be on the show quite often, right?
If you could identify what for you would be a marker of success for the program, if you could achieve one thing with it, what would that be?
You know what, and this is going to our viewers on The Correspondence. I know we're gaining viewers slowly but surely.
Of course, yes.
I would like our viewers to actually give us more feedback. You know, what are we doing right? Mm-hmm. What are we doing wrong? Tell us what you'd like to see more of.
All right, so a lot of times in the run-up to a show, a lot of hustle bustle going on. Tell us what it's like for you.
It can be like a moving pandemonium, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what it's like.
Yeah, of course.
But because we start so early, we tape at 10 a.m. Because we start so early, a lot of the folks get in there 7:30. And for me, really, it's a lot of last minute, what happened in the news? Did anything change in the headlines that I have to be aware of?
What do we need to adjust?
Yeah, and quite often, and this has happened before, you know, we don't have confirmation of our actual guests. They may be on assignment, right?
Copy that.
So that happens a lot. So every now, some shows are a little bit more hectic than others.
Right.
You're just trying to line up, make sure you have somebody on Skype.
All right, okay, tell him I'll work on it.
Make sure you have those people that are in place already. A lot of it is really sort of administrative kinds of last minute checklists that we do. Most of the planning actually happens a couple of days prior.
Somebody log out, somebody count on 2 and 3, 2, 1, dissolve my cue, animate.
I'm Mil Arcega. For now, so long from Washington.
You know, it really was great to be able to chat with Mil about his show, and it's very true, this point that he makes. He says, you know, that this is a team effort. This is not just about him. He's there to facilitate a discussion, and that's very true with our show as well. You see us up here, but there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving people around us that make this show happen every week. So.
All right, moving on. In 2012, two friends made a daring decision. They quit their jobs as graphic designers for a magazine to start their own printing business. Then a third friend joined the enterprise because it was just too tempting.
These three young artists are using traditional printing machines and techniques to create modern designs all their own. Writer Faiz El-Masri brings us their story, narrated by Faith Lapidus.
This 360-kilo platen letterpress is nearly a century old. It's not motorized, which means Emily Dwenlin has to use a foot pedal to press the design onto the paper.
We print mostly coasters on it.
This order of coasters is for a local restaurant. The coaster features a map of the restaurant's location. These machines are not manufactured anymore.
I think that one's from the early 60s. They used to run like newspapers and stuff on them. It's a really nice press because you can get a really good impression, and it's very versatile.
Everything here is done by hand, mixing the colors, feeding the papers, oiling the machine, and cleaning it. Why choose to work with old machines instead of just pressing a button and printing off the computer?
It just offers a very different service than digital does now. And for me, it really goes back to the tactile quality of being able to feel the paper and feel what you're printing and what you're making.
It was also an artistic challenge to take the old printing machines and give them a new purpose.
First, we had to learn how to use the machine, which was a different style than we were taught in school. And then once you understand how it works, how it prints and what's best, what looks best on it, then you start to design specifically for that.
And that's going to be on a really deluxe paper. It'll be really nice.
Clients always want something unique and special. Whether they're printing restaurant menus, business cards, posters, or wedding invitations, the goal is to create something that makes their clients happy. That's what happened when Anna Hahn and Joshua Garcia hired Typecase Industries to design their wedding invitation.
My style tended more towards the vintage kind. I love the letterpress designs. I love feeling the texture on the invitations, So it's actually quite an experience. It's not just reading the invitation, but it's also experiencing it, feeling it, touching it.
And we wanted it to be personalized too.
As the three friends learn more about working with their repurposed machines, they're using the old technology to create new designs and business success. For writer Faiz El-Masri, I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
A fantastic piece. But Alex, I think now it's time for us to print our ticket and get out of here.
I think it is. But before we go, we would like to send a shout out to viewers watching us all over the world on some really great stations. One of those, B92 in Serbia, another MTV channel in Sri Lanka, and of course Sky TV in Liberia.
All right, and we say this every time, but we're going to say it again. Don't forget to check out On Assignment 24/7 at voanews.com, on Facebook, and on YouTube.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. On behalf of our entire team here at On Assignment, goodbye from Washington.